I texted some of my friends and said Joey Bosa is the most overrated player in NFL history. I don't know that I actually feel that way the more I've thought about it. But I swear every time I watch the Chargers, it's like he's just like, I don't know if you guys played football in like middle school or high school even. It's like the number one thing you're taught as a defensive end is like set the edge. Just don't let anybody get outside of you. He's constantly like getting lost inside. Guys running around him. Sweeps are going for 15, 20 yards. I don't know. I've had enough of Joey Bosa. I just needed to get that off my chest.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome into Monkey Knife Fights Week 13 NFL Preview Show. I'm Dan Watkins. Joining me is the great Nick Whalen of Rotowire.com. Nick, happy Week 13. What's going on, bud?
Happy Week 13 to you as well. I want to get out in front of this narrative. As you can see, I'm not wearing my AirPods today. I'm using old wired headphones like a peasant. My AirPods did not charge overnight. That is why. So before this narrative, runs wild, just want to get out in front of that. But I'm really jacked up to talk about this Week 13 slate. You and I just kind of did a little oral history of like the 2003 to 2007 Buffalo Bills draft before the show started. And I mean, nothing gets you warmed up like talking Buffalo Bills draft pick. So I'm ready to go.
That's right. We full on circled the wagons before the show here this week. But got to ask you, though, is that a user error that your AirPods did not charge? Did you forget to plug them in or did something happen?
I mean, a craftsman never blames his tools, but they were plugged in. I'll say that. And, I should have checked that everything was firing on all cylinders. I think I used a faulty charging wire. I was victimized here. So they were technically plugged in and I thought they were charging all night, opened them up and 0%. So here we are.
It happens. I hate when I leave my headphones in my hoodie pocket, something like that. Do that quite a bit, at least 2 or 3 times a week. Yep. So anyways, I wanted to start off the show this week. There was a big kind of thing that happened Thursday night in the world of sports. I'm not talking about the Saints-Cowboys game. I'm talking about the Memphis Grizzlies and the Oklahoma City Thunder in the NBA. 73-point win for the Grizzlies, 152-79, the biggest margin of victory in NBA history. Thoughts and prayers to those of you that had OKC plus 72.5, because it just didn't happen. But since that deficit or the margin of victory was 73 points, Nick, I thought we'd get the juices flowing this week and name some famous 73s. Wondering if you had any for me. I can start us off here if you want. There's a couple. It's a big offensive lineman number. Got a couple offensive linemen here that definitely got to bring up. Of course, you got the great John Hanna, Pats lineman in the late 70s, early 80s, Hall of Famer. One of the best offensive linemen of the last 15 years, Joe Thomas, wore 73. The Cleveland Browns. Another great offensive lineman from the New Orleans Saints, Jahari Evans, was number 73. You can go to some other sports as well. It's a big time September call-up number 2. Gary Sanchez, who just re-signed with the Yankees, which is kind of funny. He wore 73 when he first came up to the majors. Charlie McAvoy for the Boston Bruins wore 73. So Nick, wonder if you got any guys for me.
The first name that comes to mind, and I believe I'll have to verify this. I believe this is the only player to ever wear 73 in the NBA was.
I looked it up. I was hoping you'd bring this up.
It was Dennis Rodman's very brief but explosive stint with the LA Lakers.
Yes.
Right?
Dennis Rodman in 1999 is the only player in NBA history to wear the number 73.
Yeah, I think, we were kind of talking about this off air. I think we're maybe like 1 or 2 teams away from John Wall or DeMarcus Cousins kind of entering that phase of his career. Our producer, Brian, brought up a great point when Baron Davis, I think he went to like the Knicks or the Cavs. All of a sudden he was wearing like number 71. There's that phase, especially in NBA players' careers. And sometimes you'll see it, especially now with some of the more relaxed jersey number rules in the NFL, but it's mostly something that afflicts like NBA All-Star who's maybe made like 1 or 2 All-Star games, reaches like their age 33 or 34 season, and they're just trying to hang on. For whatever reason, it's like, all right, the key to success here is I got to choose number 87. That's going to unlock something for me.
Yep. Got to have the most absurd jersey number possible.
Yep.
And just come off the bench, hit a couple 3-pointers, and then go sit down. So I like it. All right, great way to start the show. Thursday night football did happen as well. In case you missed the Taysom Hill experience on on Thursday night for the Saints. Any takeaways from that game? I guess my big question for you, Nick. I know you do some season-long stuff NFL wise for Rotowire. Is Zeke's time in Dallas coming to an end?
I don't know if it's coming to an end. I mean, he looked noticeably slow last night, right? And that's kind of been the case, I think, for the last few years. He had that explosive first season and still, look great his second season. And obviously they had to give him the big contract. And things have kind of gone downhill since then. But, even he had a run even at the end of the game when Dallas was just trying to put it away after the fourth Taysom Hill interception, where like he had a massive hole and I think he gained like 10 or 11 yards. But I'm sitting there thinking like there's like half the running backs in the league that break that for a touchdown. And Zeke kind of looked like a fullback, like falling through and, just picking up like 10 or 11. And then you see, Pollard run for like a 50-yard touchdown in this game. He's clearly the most explosive of the two. And, right now it almost feels like Zeke is closer to like a Mark Ingram type of running back than like the dynamic, out of the backfield can do it all type of guy that he was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, Pollard is he's looking like he's going to be a stud for a couple.
He's really good. Yeah.
He's been kind of lurking in the background there as the backup for 2 or 3 years now, but he's playing very good football. My other takeaway here is just like, Taysom Hill is my least favorite player in all of sports. I hate gadget guys. And I mean, the one thing about fantasy football that drives me just nuts, besides, when I go off and still lose, is guys like Taysom Hill that aren't good, but for some reason they're good fantasy players. In my league, he had over 20 points last night, but he was terrible.
Yeah, he. In my league, I think he still had like 15 or 16. And I'm looking at the standing or the scoreboard last night. I'm like, how is this possible? Like 4 interceptions? Like, what are we doing? Like +3 points for every pick? Like. And I mean, obviously they had that one drive where they just like used him as a battering ram for like every single play. And he picked up a bunch of yards there. But even then it's like 15 points. Like if you would have said like, without looking, how many fantasy points did Taysom Hill have? I would have said like 8 tops.
Yeah. I mean, going back to last year, the 4 games he filled in for Drew Brees, I think he had over 20 points in all 4 of those games too. So right. It just kind of drives me nuts. Anyway, so let's move on. Let's talk about the games coming up on Sunday, week 13. We got some fun ones here starting off in that early slate. We got Bengals, Chargers, battle of a couple of the first round quarterbacks from 2020, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert. And let's build a nice little 5x5 on this one. If you pick all 5 correctly, you're going to get 15 times your buy-in. That's a nice little prize there. And let's talk about Burrow. More or less 240.5 passing yards is his prop this week on MKF. He's thrown for 241 or more yards in 7 of 11 games, but he hasn't gotten there the past 2 weeks as the Bengals have kind of run away with these last 2 games. I think they're going to have a closer one this week with the Chargers. Chargers are number 5 in the NFL against the pass, allowing just 205 yards per game. Cincinnati has committed to running the ball a lot more the past 2 weeks. But Nick, are they going to have to throw here to beat the Chargers on Sunday?
This is a tough game because you look at the line and Cincinnati's at home in this one. They're only favored by 3. And obviously the Chargers have a lot of talent and clearly Vegas respects that. But, the Chargers looked terrible last week against Denver, and they've been one of the more enigmatic teams in the entire league. And obviously Cincinnati coming off of that huge win over Pittsburgh. They've won 2 straight. I think everybody's kind of back on the Bengals. So I was surprised that this line is as close as it is. So it implies that, I think a lot of people think this will be a little bit closer, despite these teams kind of moving in opposite directions, seemingly. I think you're on the right track mentioning, that Cincinnati's depended so heavily on the run lately, and it's worked for them. And you're going up against a Chargers team that gets gashed on the ground every single week. I think part of the reason that they have like a good pass defense is teams just don't pass on them because they don't have to. You're bowling over them for 7-8 yards every single carry. You don't really need to throw the ball. So I think that's the plan that Cincinnati comes out with. If it doesn't work, maybe we see more Joe Burrow airing it out in the second half. But I think I could pretty confidently go under on that number.
All right, very good. And then let's talk about Cincinnati's run game. Joe Mixon's really been popping off the past few weeks. If it wasn't for Jonathan Taylor, I think a lot more people will be talking about just how good Joe Mixon has been as of late. Yeah. His number this week is 85.5 rushing yards. He's reached 86 or more in 5 of 11. But as I mentioned, the last 2 weeks on an absolute tear, he's been on over 120 yards or more in each of the last 2 weeks. And his carries, 30 carries against the Raiders, 28 against the Steelers. It is just monstrous. And now he's going up against the worst run defense in the NFL, the Los Angeles Chargers. They're allowing 145 rushing yards a game. So this almost seems too easy for me, Nick. I kind of want to go more here. Or do you feel like he's going to come back down to earth this week?
It does feel like we're being baited into this one a little bit, but I think we have to follow the numbers here, right? I mean, not only is Mixon getting a ton of carries, it doesn't seem like that's going to change anytime soon. But like you said, I mean, this Chargers rush defense just continues to be terrible week in and week out. I've in the heat of frustration last week, as I lost some money betting on the Chargers. I texted some of my friends and said Joey Bosa is the most overrated player in NFL history. I don't know that I actually feel that way the more I've thought about it. But I swear every time I watch the Chargers, it's like he's just like, I don't know if you guys played football in like middle school or high school even. It's like the number one thing you're taught as a defensive end is like set the edge. Just don't let anybody get outside of you. He's constantly like getting lost inside, guys running around him, sweeps are going for 15, 20 yards. I don't know. I've had enough of Joey Bosa. I just needed to get that off my chest. But I think Joe Mixon easily goes over here, right? I mean, everything is adding up in his favor when you look at the numbers. I think Cincinnati's really confident in how they're running the ball. They've to me, the last 2 weeks, they've started to look like the 49ers, which is really scary when you're blocking that well and you have a dynamic back like Joe Mixon. Yeah.
I just want to say, Nick, that anything you say within an hour of losing a bet cannot be held against you in court of law. So that's my rule anyway.
Right. Well, and to take it a step further, I sent this text from the stands at Lambeau Field. Like they showed a highlight on the Jumbotron because like when you're at the stadium, like that's the one thing I don't like about going to games is like, one, you never have good service. Even though Lambeau has Wi-Fi, it's like when 80,000 people are signed in, it doesn't work. So I'm blind. I have no idea if my bets are hitting or not. And then they're like, we're going to do a game break. And they show Teddy Bridgewater just stiff arming Joey Bosa to the ground and throwing a touchdown. I'm like, all right, this is it.
Terrible. Absolutely terrible.
Do you even watch the games, Nick?
No, I don't even know who the Packers played.
All right. All right. So Bengals wide receiver Jamar Chase, 68.5 receiving yards. He's reached that nice total of 69 yards in 5 of 11 games this season, but he hasn't had more than 49 receiving yards in the last 4 weeks. T. Higgins has kind of stepped up and been the guy here as of late. Can Jamar Chase get this thing going again? I know we're going less on Burrow at 240. What does that mean for Chase?
Man, this one's tough. He's been, quietly really not very effective these last 4 weeks now. And they do have a bye in there. So his last 4 games, he's been under 50 yards. It's a little concerning. Obviously he started so fast that maybe he was due for some regression at some point, but I don't know if it comes this week. It's like he's always a threat to, catch a slant over the middle and take it 55 yards for a touchdown. And then all of a sudden you just need 1 or 2 more catches and he hits this over. But if we think they're going to keep it on the ground, we think, it's kind of a ball control game for Joe Burrow. I don't think I can confidently go over here. So I'll take the less on Jamar Chase.
Yep, I agree with you. And then on the Chargers offense, Justin Herbert, 280.5 passing yards. He's reached 281 or more in 7 of 11 games. The Bengals are bottom third in the NFL against the pass. They're allowing about 254 yards per game. He's been over the last 6 games. So over the last 6 games against Cincinnati, only the legendary Mike White has thrown for more than 260 yards on the Bengals when he threw 405 against Cincinnati a few weeks ago. Everybody else, the Bengals have kind of put the clamps on. Can Justin Herbert break that stretch and enter Mike White territory?
I think he can, because I think he's going to have to, right? I mean, I think there's a chance that this game plays out kind of like last week. And then I don't know if they fall into a major deficit right away like they did to Denver. But I mean, Justin Herbert has thrown the ball 85 times over the last 2 weeks because they've been in these shootout type of games. The game before was Pittsburgh, where the Steelers stormed back, and all of a sudden a game that looked like the Chargers had in hand, they had to go down and score a couple more times late in that one. Even back to the Minnesota game 3 weeks ago, the Chargers, regardless of who is the head coach, regardless of who's the quarterback, just continue to end up in these Chargery games every single week. And honestly, I think this is going to be another one of those, right? So I think, if we think that the Bengals are going to be able to control the game on the ground against the league's worst rushing defense, they're probably going to be putting up points. I think the Chargers are going to have to match it. And I think this is another game where Justin Herbert probably goes over 300 yards for what would be now the 4th time in his last 5 games.
Yeah, I like that number as well. And his favorite target, Keenan Allen, his prop is 6.5 receptions on this nice little 5x5. This is my favorite play of this entire slate here. Keenan Allen has had double-digit targets in each of the last 5 games, 7 or more catches in 7 of 11 games this season, including each of the last 4 games. If we're going all in on Justin Herbert, I don't think Keenan Allen's going to have a quiet day. So I feel like he's going to force feed him the ball. So I like this over a lot.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, for the first half of the season, it kind of felt like Allen and Mike Williams were like co-number ones. And now they're back to just like using Mike Williams as this jump ball guy. And that seems to be about it. Whereas Keenan Allen has now become, not only a deep threat, but also their number 1 possession guy. So I think you're on the right track here. I would go more on Keenan Allen as well.
All right. So moving on to the late afternoon slate of games. let's do something a little different here. The people, the wonderful fans of MKF have spoken, and they want to talk about some rapid fire contests. And I figured, you know what? Let's talk about the Ravens.
Let's do it.
I think this is a good one to do a little rapid fire on. So basically, these are all almost just straight up kind of gambling ones here. You got guys. You got guys and how they're going to perform. So let's see how it is here. Let's start off. Let's talk about the quarterbacks in this one. This is a late game as well. This is a 4:00 kick. Ben Roethlisberger versus Lamar Jackson. Will Lamar Jackson stay within 10.5 passing yards of Ben? Ravens are 32nd in the league. That's dead last against the pass, which just feels absolutely shocking to say that the Baltimore Ravens are ranked dead last in something on defense, but they do against the pass, allowing 275 yards per game. The Steelers are 12th in the NFL against the pass, allowing 234. But Lamar is averaging 9 more yards a game through the air than Ben, which also feels crazy to say. But I think that's just really because Ben is on his last leg, knee, shoulder. He is just at the absolute end of his career. But will Lamar stay within 10.5 passing yards of Ben?
First of all, I would like to make a prediction that Ben Roethlisberger is back to starting at quarterback next season. Like, it doesn't it just kind of feel like we're heading that way, where like he's going to have like 2 good games, and he'll probably play really well in like week 17, or I guess week 18 now, and all of a sudden they'll have a little momentum, and they'll be like, well, we don't really have any other options. It just seems like that we're heading that direction, which is a terrible proposition if you're a Steelers fan. This is a really, really tough choice, right? Because like obviously Lamar is the better player at this point, but dating back to that Dolphins game a few weeks ago where Baltimore's offense just could not get anything going, I maintain that was the worst offensive performance I have seen this year, including all Bears and Lions games. And since then, it's just felt like they, those deep shots to Marquise Brown just haven't been there. Like other than Mark Andrews, it's like Lamar doesn't really trust anybody in that offense. I think I kind of have to default to Ben Roethlisberger here. As bad as he's looked, we know the Steelers are going to have to air it out. They've struggled to get things going on the ground all season. And then, like you said, this Ravens defense that has been so good for so long that we kind of give them the benefit of the doubt and just assume they're going to be good no matter what. They're one of the worst defenses against the pass in the league. They're one of the worst overall defenses, and they're the worst tackling team in the league this season. That's what's bit them the most. Is that you think back to that Bengals game, I think like 4 or 5 weeks ago, where Jamar Chase is just breaking tackles left and right. Like if they don't break up the pass in the air, they have trouble, stopping receivers from racking up yak yardage. I know Pittsburgh's banged up. I know Juju obviously is out for the year. They don't have all their weapons, but I think I have to side with Ben here.
Yeah, I guess I'll go with Ben too, just because of how bad, Baltimore's defense has been. When you're dead last in something, usually I'm going to go against you. So let's go with Ben there. And then let's talk about a couple of the wide receivers that they're going to be throwing the ball to on Sunday. And that's Deontay Johnson going up against Marquise Brown. And same prop here. Will Marquise Brown stay within 10.5 receiving yards of Johnson? These guys both having very good seasons. DJ is averaging 81 yards per game. Brown is averaging 77 yards per game. So both having very good seasons, as I just mentioned. They're both getting double-digit targets as of late, but Johnson is doing more with those targets lately. Brown has kind of cooled off here recently, and I feel like if we're going to go with Ben, I think we got to go with Deontay Johnson as well.
Yeah, I weirdly feel like Roethlisberger and Johnson are the 2 safest options here. I think there's more upside potential with Lamar. Like when he's cooking and when he's in sync with Marquise Brown, those guys can hit like 80-yard touchdowns on any play. You can't necessarily say that about the Steelers offense, but like you said, you get a really safe target share with Deontay Johnson, who's had double-digit targets in 5 of his last 6. He's catching a lot of those targets. Marquise Brown, it feels like, gets targeted a lot, but half of those throws are like way over his head or into double coverage. He's the bigger like boom or bust guy, but I think Deontay Johnson has the much higher floor.
And then what's the last one we got up there, Jay? Is that Mark Andrews and Bateman? Very good. All right. So let's talk about a couple of the other weapons for the Baltimore Ravens offense. And that'll be, So that would be tight end Mark Andrews, wide receiver Rashad Bateman. Bateman's been back for 6 games this season. They've had the same amount of catches in 5 of those 6 games, and the other one, Andrews had 8 receptions. Bateman only had 3. So the prop here is, will Bateman stay within a half a reception of Andrews? So it's basically who's going to have more catches this week. I feel like just the safe play here is to go with Mark Andrews. Nick, what are you going with?
Yeah, I mean, Mark Andrews just hasn't been very efficient with those targets, but you look at the last 4 games, Mark Andrews, 48 targets, Rashad Bateman, 26 targets. I mean, he's almost doubling him up. At some point, those numbers, the targets versus catches are going to standardize. So I don't really see a great case to go against Andrews here. I think if it was like Bateman, plus 1.5, plus 2.5, then you think about it. But I think Andrews is the smart play.
All right. Okay. That's going to bring us to the rest of the games here during the afternoon on Sunday. And let's do a little speed round here. We got 7 guys I want to get to this week, and let's try to do it in 75 seconds. I think that's a good number. All right.
It's just like
it's a classic number.
All these shows have like these segments where it's like 2-minute drill, 1.5 minutes, and every week we're just like, how about 75 seconds?
Yeah, I mean, there's a different amount of guys we got to get to each week. So,
we should make it 73 seconds in honor of the
you know what? That's good. Let's do it in 73 seconds in honor of the Memphis Grizzlies, Oklahoma City Thunder. So if you are ready, Nick, we will begin. You ready?
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Tom Brady at Atlanta, more or less 299.5 passing yards.
More. I think the Bucs offense is back on track.
Jonathan Taylor at Houston, 100.5 rushing yards for JT.
I think he breaks a big one. I think he goes over.
Justin Jefferson at Detroit against our Detroit Lions, 88.5 receiving yards, more or less.
The Lions played the Vikings tough last time. I have a sneaking suspicion that this one won't be a massive blowout. So I'm going to go just under on here.
Kyler Murray, he's back at Chicago, 255.5 passing yards.
Less. I still kind of trust that Bears defense to slow them down a little bit.
All right, put your biases aside. Matt Stafford taking on your Jacksonville Jaguars, 288.5 passing yards, more or less.
Way more.
All right.
That's all I got to say about that.
His number one target, Cooper Kupp, the best receiver in football this season against those same Jacksonville Jaguars, 101.5 receiving yards.
Way more. He might be the first receiver to get a 100+ yard catch just on one reception.
I love it. And last one here, Nick, 10 seconds. Derek Carr versus the Washington football team, 275.5 passing yards.
I think he goes more. He goes more here.
All right. Love it. Look at that. With 2 seconds to spare, the 73-second drill is complete. So there you go, guys. Enjoy that.
I think we're going to see a lot of shows start to adopt the 73-second drill.
I think it's a good one. It's a good one. I think we're on to something here.
We're already seeing a competition naming people. One of the places the other day said name a random quarterback. That was their whole tweet.
Wow.
Just cease and desist.
Credit where credit's due.
Wow. That is just
at Whalen with a 1.
That's right. Hey, we'll get to that. In a few minutes. All right. So let's we got some Sunday night football to talk about first before we get to Nick's Twitter handle. But anyways, Broncos at Chiefs.
the highlight of the show.
The AFC West making its claim as the best division in all of football. All 4 teams entering week 13 are over 500. Kansas City coming in off the bye for this one. They're taking on the Denver Broncos at home. Andy Reid is 19-3 in the regular season coming off a bye, and also 11-1 at home in that same time period. So it's just it's not looking good for Denver this week. They haven't beaten the Chiefs since 2015. So I don't know if that's going to change this weekend, but we have some fun fantasy contests to play here on MKF. And let's build a nice 5x5 for this one as well. 15 times your buy-in if you get all 5 picks correctly. And let's start off with the man himself, Patty Mahomes, 290.5 passing yards is his more or less. He's reached 291 or more passing yards in just 4 of 11 games this season. It really has been a bit of a roller coaster for the Chiefs here, but it seems like they're on the upswing. Just one time, though, in the last 5 games has Mahomes thrown for 291 yards. Denver also ranks 10th in the NFL against the pass. Nick, what's Mahomes going to do Sunday night?
I think this number is just a little too high. I do like the Chiefs to win this game. They're 9.5-point favorites, still getting a ton of respect, despite being fairly up and down. But I think he goes just under here. They've been able to win without Mahomes, having these massive games. Other than that Raiders game, like you said, he's been pretty comfortably under this number the last 4 or 5 weeks. So I think the Chiefs win, but I think it's a combination of the ground game and the passing game.
All right, and then let's talk about a couple of his receivers here. Travis Kelce, 6.5 receptions. He's had 7 or more catches in just 5 of 11 this season, and just once in the last 4. Also, that Raiders game that you mentioned where the Chiefs just really popped off against Vegas. Denver's only allowed 44 catches to tight ends in 11 games. They've been very good defending the tight end, and I got to think they're not going to let Travis Kelce beat them either on Sunday night.
Yeah, that's a really good stat. I don't see Travis Kelce quite getting to this number. Obviously, you're keen on him, and we'll kind of see as the season goes on. But that Raiders game where it looked like the Chiefs' offense was finally like fully back to where it was like 3 years ago, maybe that one will be a bit of an outlier because they did get a nice win against Dallas before the bye, but the offense sputtered, after getting up early. The offense really didn't do much for the final like 2.5 quarters of that game. So I think this will actually be a nice window into whether this offense truly is back or not. But either way, I think Kelce probably has a few big plays, but he probably goes under that number.
Yeah, I like some of these games that he's put up recently where it's like 5 catches, 60-something yards. I can see that being probably the case here Sunday night as well. Then you got Tyreek Hill, 86.5 receiving yards for Tyreek. He's reached 87 reception yards in just 3 games this year. And I mean, it hasn't been a great season for Tyreek Hill. I mean, this entire Chiefs offense has just been struggling here. And if we're going less on Mahomes, we're going less on Kelce. Anything different for Hill?
I kind of want to go more on Hill. Just the targets alone over these last few weeks. I mean, he has 50 targets over the last 4 games.
Yeah, 18 against the Giants.
Yeah, right. He had 18 against the Giants, 11 against Green Bay, 10 against Vegas, 11 against Dallas. He's always just been like one broken tackle away from like breaking a true Tyreek Hill type of play. Maybe that comes this week. I got to go more on Tyreek Hill. I feel like the workload implies that the yardage should be higher. Some of these other guys we've talked about kind of regressing toward the mean. I think maybe he progresses a bit this week.
All right. And then let's talk about your guy, Teddy Bridgewater, 235.5 passing yards for Teddy B. He's thrown for 236 or more in 5 of 11 games this season. The Chiefs are giving up over 250 yards per game through the air. Can Teddy Bridgewater build off that excellent stiff arm of Joey Bosa and throw for 236 yards against the Chiefs on Sunday night?
Most overrated player in NFL history. I don't think he can. No, this number is a little too high. The Chiefs defense has quietly been pretty good those last few weeks. Yeah. I mean, they were so bad, like right around when they played Green Bay, it feels like everything kind of flipped there. Like playing Jordan Love, like brought everything back for them. But I mean, Bridgewater, like obviously they won that game against the Chargers. He only had 11 completions for 129 in that game. And he was a little banged up, and we saw some Drew Lock at times in that game. So that's part of it. But I think this number is a little too high. If it was like, I don't know, 215, I would probably go more, but I'm going to go under on 235.5.
And then we got Melvin Gordon, one of Denver's 2 running backs here. His props 57.5 rushing yards for Gordon. He's reached 58 or more in just 3 of 11 games. KC's middle of the pack against the run at 111. I don't like this at all. I mean, 1, I think Javonte Williams is the better runner in Denver. And 2, I just think the game flow here, Denver's going to be trailing in this game. I don't think they're going to be able to get Gordon the ball that much.
Yeah, I mean, Gordon's also questionable for this game. He did not practice on Thursday. His status is, for today, that they should be able to log one more with this being a late game on Sunday. But yeah, I mean, probably active, but if he's iffy, maybe that pushes even more the workload toward Javonte Williams. So I think it'd be pretty risky going more on Melvin.
So to end this one here, we're going to do it during our college football show with the great John McKechnie, also of Rotowire.com.
Yeah.
We usually play who's going to be the best Ohio State wide receiver or who's going to be the best Alabama wide receiver. So let's do that, but let's do it with who's going to be the best Denver Bronco wide receiver on Sunday Night Football. Nick, who do you got?
Man, kind of a sneakily loaded receiving core in Denver, right? I mean, Sutton, Judy back, Tim Patrick. Tim Patrick is probably my favorite of these guys, just in terms of like watching him. He reminds me, kind of harkens back to like the Rod Smith days. I feel like he has that similar type of size. Probably not going to put up the type of career numbers that Rod Smith did, but for that guy to basically be your third option is quite the luxury. I think I'm going to go. Man, this is tough. They've all kind of struggled these last few weeks. Like if you,
yes, they have.
Like, man, like I want to go Cortland Sutton. He hasn't even topped 40 yards since like midway through the year. Patrick's been down a little bit. Man, this is a difficult one. We'll default to Jerry Jeudy in honor of Alabama, Georgia on Saturday. I think especially if Bama's able to pull the upset in the SEC title game, maybe that gives Jerry Jeudy a little more motivation. But he too, like those other 2 guys, has not been great these last few weeks. Only 2 for 25 on 3 targets against the Chargers. But he did have 6 catches each of the last 2 games. We're locking it in, Jerry Jeudy.
There we go. Pick of the day, Jerry Jeudy, 6 receptions. From Nick Whalen.
Just Clyde Edwards-Hilaire's 55.5 rushing yards, and we have all of these are filled out. I gave you more on Jerry Jeudy. Now you have to live with it. But what do you guys like, more or less?
Lock it in. I'm going to go less on Edwards-Hilaire.
There it is. Look at your buy-in.
Take
30x
it to the
your
bank.
buy-in. 30x.
Look at that. It's 6x6. It's 30 times your buying. If you hit,
Wow.
you can get all your holiday shopping done.
Also,
If you hit
Amon Green X, you're buying. That's insane.
from the NBA show, the wonderfully run for 2 weeks NBA show that we've had, and we'll come back at some point. Nick actually hit a 10x10 on a speed round, which was 125x your buy-in.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
that happened.
how do you think I paid for the AirPods?
Now you can get a charger.
Sure. I gotta hit another 10x10 for that.
All right. All right. Very good. It is that time already. Nick, where can the people find you?
All right, so you're going to log on to http://www.twitter.com. Then you're going to go to the search on the upper right hand, and if you type in WHA, the number 1EN, I should be the first suggestion. You'll see my name, Nick Whalen. It'll reflect the Twitter handle, and then you'll see Rotowire NBA editor. That's me. So follow those directions, and you should have no problem.
There it is, step-by-step guideline to find Nick Whalen on Twitter. I love it. You can follow me at Dan Watkins Radio. Thanks for watching, guys. Enjoy week 13, and we'll be talking to you.